All right, hey everybody. Today we'll be discussing how to deploy a React and Express application on AWS EC2, kind of your full stack application. I'm going to preface this with this may not be the smartest way to deploy your application. There are a lot of more easier and more abstract ways to deploy applications on AWS using Elastic Beanstalk. You can use Amplify. You can even use their container service using some Docker containers there. But I want to go into how to deploy your application on an EC2 server to really get the fundamentals of how all these abstractions actually work underneath the hood. So I'll be sharing with you guys my GitHub repo. It's a really simple app. We can actually go over and take a look right now, see if it's all loaded up. Let's head over to my application. Here we go. All right, so let's start off by going to the server. Now, this is just a typical Express server. This is essentially like your starting off template. Here are all the imports, Express, Morgan, all your middlewares, your cores. You may not even need this .env. We may not even be using environment variables, but or right here we will be, but it's not actually necessary. So anyway, starting up our Express app, and we'll have a single get call just to kind of show that the RESTful API is actually working. There's communication. And I'll just skip this for 1 second and just bring you down here to lines 30 to 32. And here our app's going to be listening on, will be port 5000. Now I'll bring you guys over to these lines over here, 22 to 27. And this essentially allows us to serve our React app statically through our Express server. So I'll bring you over to the React client folder very soon, but essentially this is just finding the client build folder and displaying those files statically. So let's head over to the client folder and just show you everything that you need to know here. So here's the build folder that I already created. If we go over to the package.json, we have this build script that essentially just creates a production-ready front end for us. We'll come back to package.json, but I want to go into our source folder, open up apt.get, and just kind of show you guys exactly what's happening here. So essentially we have this h1 element, hi, and we'll be showing this data variable. And what's this data variable? If we come up here, we can see that we start off by setting it to just an empty string. And then we have this use effect call that's just called just once with this empty array. And we have a get call using that /test. And we set the data to whatever the information is in the response. So eventually this should be updated and it will display what we get in the response from the backend. Now, as you guys can see here, this is actually important. We're just doing /test. We're not putting local host before it. We're not putting any, or local host 5000. We're not putting any URL. And the reason for that is because in our package.json file, we have this proxy definition, which we will be changing once we're in our production environment. But when we're coding in development, we will just have that there. All right, so next we're going to head over to our AWS account, and we're going to head to EC2, which I have right here ready for us to go. And what we're going to end up doing is creating an instance for our application to run on. Currently we have nothing here, but before we do that, I want us to create our security groups. I should have them already ready, but we'll be using this launch to EC2 that I already created, but I'll show you guys exactly what's happening here. I have 4 inbound rules here, but you'll actually only need 3 here. And we need these inbound rules because EC2 instances by default block all ports for inbound. So we have to kind of explain to the EC2 instance and define the exact ports that we want to allow for inbound. So the ports that you guys are going to want to use is this HTTP one. You're going to want to use SSH port 80 and port 22. And you're also going to want to add this custom port 5000, as that's the port we're working with our backend. Once you guys have all that created, you can do that by creating a security group. I'll just walk you guys quickly through it. You can name it, you'll give it a description, and you'll add these rules. And we'll just have one for HTTP. And we'll have one for SSH. We'll have a custom one on 5000. For this scenario, well, you guys can just use the anywhere. And then you want to go ahead and just create security group. But I'll skip that for now. And we're going to head over to our instances page. All right, so now we're going to launch an instance. So let's start out by giving it a name. Server will be it for me today. And you guys are going to want to use the Ubuntu AMI, and I'm just going to do the free tier kind of configuration. So this all looks good. It should be pretty obvious here. Now here you guys are going to want to create a key pair. This allows us to securely SSH into our EC2 instance. I already have mine here ready. This is key pair. But you guys are going to want to create a new one, and you'll create a key pair. It will download, and you want to put it into some directory, and you want to make sure you're aware of which directory you put it in, because that will be important in the future. So here, let me select mine. And here we have to select our security group. So we have that one ready. This all looks good. And we can go ahead and launch an instance. Now let's just wait for this to initiate or initialize. Okay, so our EC2 instance is up and running, and what we're going to do is connect to it. And we're going to do that via SSH. So we want to go up here and make sure you check this off and go to connect. And you may load up right here, but we're going to go to SSH client and essentially just follow these directions. So what you're going to want to do first is navigate over to the directory where your key pair is. So mine's right here in the desktop. Here I'm already here. And what you're going to want to do is run this command. And essentially, as it says here, it makes sure that your key is not publicly viewable. So we'll go over here and run that. And then you're just going to want to SSH into your instance. So copy this command down here, hit enter. You're going to want to type in yes. And we're in. Wonderful. I'm going to open this up. All right, so now we have a few steps to take care of to kind of set up our instance. So the first command you're going to want to run is this command right here, and I'll make sure to put these all in the comments. And I also have a blog that I wrote for this exact scenario. So it has a step-by-step instructions to essentially do what I'm doing in this video. And what this command is doing is it's updating the package list with packages that need to be updated. And then it downloads that package list from the repository, and it updates them. So it's pretty cool stuff. And next we have to install NGINX with this command here. And if you're asking exactly what is NGINX, completely valid question. Let me just make sure I have all this installed before I explain. All right, so as that's downloading, so essentially, NGINX is an open source software for web serving, reverse proxying, caching, load balancing, media streaming, and also a lot more stuff. We're only going to be using their web serving and their proxy service today. So with that installed, we should be able to head over to our instance. Let's just go to instances here. And if we open up the IP and make sure that it's just HTTP, not HTTPS, we have our NGINX server running. So this is great. This means that we've correctly installed NGINX. And what we're going to do next is actually configure NGINX to serve our application, the one that we want it to serve. So to do so, we're going to head over to our terminal and actually navigate. Let's see where we are here. Back up one more. Beautiful. So we're going to navigate to this directory. I'm going to put this into the comments as well, so don't worry about it. But we're going to go here, and there's going to be or there should be, hopefully, this default file. And that essentially is a set of instructions for NGINX to run. So if we open up this file, we'll see a whole bunch of stuff. So looks like the server is listening on port 80 on the default server. It kind of defines the route here. Essentially, this is all the instructions that allow for this to run. We don't want any of this, so we're going to delete it all. And I'm going to paste in what we actually want. Okay, beautiful. So what's happening here, and we're actually going to have to make a couple changes, but we have our server that's going to be listening on port 80, and we want it to be serving on our public IP. So we're going to put that in there. And then we also have our location. So this is kind of where we set up our proxy. So to do so, we have these headers here that kind of allow for the proxy to set up. And then we have to pass in our private IP here, and it will proxy it through port 5000. So let's go over and grab our public IP first. And we'll just put that in here. Wonderful. And then let's grab our private IP and put it in here. And now what you want to do is press, if you're on Mac, you want to press Control X and then Y and then enter. Beautiful. And now what we kind of have to do is let NGINX know that we've changed the instruction. So it kind of has to do this like restart situation. So you'll want to run this command. Beautiful. All right, so the next thing we want to do is install Node. we're using an Express Node.js backend, so we need to have some support for Node on our instance here. So what I'm going to do is head over to our root directory. So next we need to install Node. All of these are going to be in the comments, so this may seem kind of a bit much right away, but it's just to install Node on our EC2 instance. So I'm just going to paste them in here. You guys will have complete access to all of this. And to see if everything has been installed correctly, there we are. Now with Node installed, all we have to do now is clone our repo into our server, install the dependencies, and run the server. So let's just make sure we're back at the root, and let's go grab the clone URL. There we are. And beautiful. Install. Nice. And now let's run it. And if we head over to our public IP, and again, make sure we're using HTTP here. There we go. So again, if we go back to when we were walking through our client folder, we have the hi. And if the server was able to communicate with the front end, we would get this data. And this is data from the server, is the data from the server. So there you go. This is how you deploy a full stack application on a EC2 instance. I'll make sure that all that code that I pasted in here is in the description, so you guys can just follow right along. And I'll also share the link to my blog post that gives a pretty good description of how to do all of this. It also has all the code, so that may be pretty useful for you guys to follow along with. And yeah, hope you guys found this useful. Thanks.